the whole roster taxi squad situation, is that going to be tough for you or tougher for Bill Scott, the cap guy?
Bill Scott for sure. Obviously by putting people on waivers and them going through, Jim, we're going to be able to move people around from the taxi squad to the 23-man roster. Obviously, we started with 9 defensemen today. We'll get down to 8 tomorrow to give us some flexibility on the roster, but I'm assuming Bill Scott will be busy.
And is this, you're still going to have too many guys, I would suspect, on a taxi squad? Are you still going to have to make a move there, or what? Did you sign Devon Shore?
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously with Neil and Haas on IR, I mean, I think Haas is a ways away. Hopefully next week sometime James Neal's ready to join us. So certainly, as they'll come on the roster, and then they'll go from the roster to the taxi squad, and then a player or two from the taxi squad are going to have to be assigned to Bakersfield as we go along here. But I also, I've been at it before. You always think you got too many players, and then you start to play games, and injuries occur. So. Then you add in obviously COVID. So certainly we feel good that we've got good depth, lots of players, and hopefully we can avoid COVID and we can avoid the injuries. But I would anticipate every night in this division, in all the divisions, it's going to be like a playoff game, intense, physical, and when you have that kind of hockey, you do have injuries. So. I'm sure it'll work itself out, but if we stay healthy, we'll work. Obviously, we're going to have to work some players, like I said, from onto the roster, onto the taxi squad, and then onto Bakersfield.
Next question, Mark Spector, Sportsnet.
How you doing, Ken?
Mark?
I want to ask you about Jesse Puljujarvi, sort of just check in now that we're sort of start the regular season. This has been for a guy you've never really had, you didn't draft him. You've never really seen him play a regular season game for your team. There's been a lot of involvement, right? You had to hang on to the asset. You had to make some tough decisions. Just tell us how you've been through this road, and now you got the player back, and what do you expect to happen here?
I like Jesse's obviously on a line with Kyle Turris and Archibald. Jesse seems to be very happy there. Obviously, his 2 line mates are veteran guys, both in their upper 20s, maybe 30, I don't know, but they both are experienced pros, good pros. There seems to be good chemistry with them. Watching them practice every day, they seem to have good chemistry. I'm excited and anxious to watch. Certainly, they could be a real important line for us. I know that. Coach Tippett's going to use them in some matchups. Certainly one of the things that we tried to do with our roster in the offseason was, get a little more depth to the bottom part of our roster. Depth, and I thought our bottom part of our roster last year contributed a lot in penalty killing and played some minutes. Hopefully we can add to that and they can do those things, but chip in a little bit, just a little bit more offense. Not a ton, but just a little bit. You're always looking, a few less goals against and a few more goals for can make a dramatic difference in the standings and how you feel about yourself and how you're able to prepare for bigger games down the road. So. I talked to him early in camp about coming back. We had a conversation about his number. He was looking for a fresh start. Obviously, made a decision to drop 98 and put number 13 on. So he seems to be in good spirits. I know in talking to the people that have been here, from a couple of years ago, his English is much better, so he's able to communicate with his team a lot better. So. Certainly in the first 10 days, 2 weeks here, since he's been here, lots of positives.
Just if you could just expound a little on the number thing, like that's been a topic of some divisiveness around Edmonton. What difference does it make what number he wears, do you think?
I think fresh start. I think new opportunity, fresh start. That's what I think it's about. It's obviously you're one of the people that cover this team on an everyday basis, and the things that you've talked about and asked me about, you've been here longer than I have, so you've been aware of the way things went with his career, and I think it's with a new coach and new general manager. He was in Finland last year, wiped the slate clean. Let's start from fresh. He's still a young man. He's 22 years of age. Like I said, he speaks English better. Obviously, he's 22 versus 18 and 19, so he's got some more life experiences and professional experiences under his belt. Just a new opportunity, a fresh opportunity.
Next question, Jason Greger, TSN 1260.
Ken, losing Forsberg, I don't know if that was a surprise or not, but what's going to be the plan moving forward? Do you want a veteran goaltender on that taxi squad when the AHL starts so Skinner can play, or would you be okay with him being on your taxi squad for much of the year?
Well, I mean, obviously, the American League doesn't start till February the 5th. And Bakersfield starts their training camp on ice, I think, January the 25th. There's a quarantine period, I think 3 or 4 days in the American Hockey League. So, here in the short term, we're fine. But certainly, we're going to need 5 goalies, 3 obviously in Edmonton. We need 2 in Bakersfield here. So over the next few days here, we got to start figuring something out to get another goaltender. But certainly we do want 5 in the short term. Obviously, like I said, the American League, they don't start. Bakersfield doesn't start their. I think they're going to play some preseason games the week before February the 5th. I think Keith Gretzky's talking to some teams down in that division. So we've got a couple of weeks here, but we do need to find another goalie.
When you assess your group now, like you look tonight, there's 8 players who weren't in your starting lineup last year. Now, obviously, Jones and Yamamoto came halfway through, but that's still a significant change, Ken, from when you took over, in year one. How do you feel your team is better? We see the skill level, but is your team better to defend and lower goals against in your eyes?
Let's play games. I mean, I think that's the question about, other than... I'll go back even, my days in Detroit when our team we thought it was good. You got to play games. That's how you find, that answers the question. I mean, the questions are going to be answered tonight and tomorrow night and against Montreal on Saturday and against Montreal on Monday. I guess I would say to you, when we've got some young people on the roster, but Ethan Barry, but he's got a year under his belt, and Caleb Jones, got up last year and played, 15, 16, 17 games, and when he got in there, he played real well. Yamamoto came up at Christmas time, so they're young players that we've talked about. Puljujarvi's 22 years of age. We've added some players that Turris has been around the league for a long time. So we've added, some of our younger players have got a year under their belt. Some of the younger players that had the disappointment of the Chicago series. I think that's part of the evolution and the development of a hockey team. It's a massive disappointment the way we played in the Chicago series, and I'm sure it's got a bitter taste in everybody's mouth. So hopefully that's motivation for our guys to do those detail things, and that attention, the commitment to playing, keeping the puck out of our net. And again, from 2 years ago to last year, we made progress in a lot of areas. We need to maintain in some of those areas, obviously our special teams were off the charts last year. We were first and second. I don't expect us to be first and second, but you can't have a significant drop. Certainly anticipating that we might have a bit of a drop in 1 or 2 of those areas, but we got to pick it up in some other areas. So I think that we've got, I like our depth. We like our depth on defense. We like our depth up front. If we do get hit with some injuries, there's some injuries that you can't overcome. There's other injuries that your depth can overcome. So we believe that we're ready to have a good season. but those questions that you're answered, obviously we made moves in the summertime to bring in more depth, bring in more competition. Bring in some veteran people that played in the league. Kukuk's played in the league. Barry's played in the league on defense. So it's not like we're bringing in young players. They're guys that have been around the National Hockey League. So we believe we're a better team. We believe we had a really good regular season last year, going with 11 games to go. We had a disappointing playoff. I'm hoping that all those experiences have us ready for this season.
Last question, Patrick Henry, Radio Canada.
Yeah, Ken, I don't know how serious it was, but I think there was some discussion about the possibility of loaning some player to the Canadian team in the AHL. Is that something that you would like to do to make sure your young player can play and you can call them back without having to quarantine them?
Well, I guess I would say to you, the American League over the last 2-3 weeks, went through a process to decide which teams, which NHL teams, American League teams wanted to play. I think, obviously 2 or 3 of them decided to, 2 or 3 American League teams made a decision that they were not going to field a team this year, and those NHL teams have now gone shared with other NHL teams. We're going alone in Bakersfield. So, what I'm going to have to weigh here, there's no decision to make until February the 5th. Other than a training camp in Bakersfield, there's no games going on in the American Hockey League. So, there's 3 weeks here where, if you're on the taxi squad in the NHL, it's the best place to NHL roster. The taxi squad is the best place to be. As we get going here and we get into February and you get into March, we've got some young people here that are on our taxi squad that are going to need to play games. And then as we start to go along, we've got some players in Europe, possibly in college, that we have to make the decisions. I'm thinking in Europe, Lavoie, Kemp, Broberg, Samorukov. When those seasons are over in Europe, those are young players that are going to be coming over to North America. And, we've got some players in college. Do we sign them? Do we leave them in college for another year? Those are decisions that we have to make here over the next 6 weeks. But certainly our aim at the NHL level with the Oilers is to compete, to be the best we can be, to be a playoff team. But at the same time, behind the scenes, those players that aren't on the Oilers, whether they're on the taxi squad or they're in Bakersfield, we're looking for those players towards, deeper into the season, and in some cases towards the 21-22 season, to get them professional games and get them ready to try to compete for a roster spot in training camp next year. But so there's things going on. Obviously, the focus is on tonight, the Oilers against Vancouver. The focus is on the roster. The focus is on the taxi squad. But my job as a general manager is to try to make sure that I'm focused on that, but I'm also focused on trying to get our young players developed and ready for down the road.
One late question here, Jim Matheson, Post Media.
Ken, I just want to get back to Forsberg. A couple of things. Did you expect that Carolina would take him back? And the other question I have for you is, unless Carolina puts him back on waivers, and I guess you have first right to take him back, you're in a situation where you'd have to trade for a goalie. That's not really applicable to trade for a third round, number 3 goalie, is it?
Did I expect Forsberg to get claimed? No. Don Waddell was my assistant manager in Detroit in 1998, so Don gave me a courtesy call a couple of hours in advance of the waiver claim to give me a heads up. So when it happened, I was aware it was going to happen. Certainly, Skinner was with us in the bubble. Ideally, I would like to have Stuart Skinner play in games. He's still a young goaltender. He's 22 years of age. I think as part of his development, he needs to really play lots of games and needs to really establish himself as a, real legitimate #1 American Hockey League goaltender. I think he was in the process of that last year. So here on the short term, I think this is, he can be here. He can practice on the taxi squad, but I think the third goaltender on a taxi squad is going to be a difficult job all around the league, because your top 2 goalies are going to want to be in the net. Now, I don't know how much teams are going to practice. We play a game every 2 days, so maybe some goalies are going to take some days off. There's an opportunity for that third goalie to be in practice every day. I guess what we'll do over the next few days is, ideally, we'd like to have the 5 goalies here, 5 Oiler goalies. If we got down the road and we had to get someone to put a goalie into Bakersfield from another organization, that would be a possibility. So does somebody want to move a goalie and trade for a goalie? That's what we gotta figure out here. Obviously, it just happened yesterday, Jim. I'm gonna kind of wait here over the next 48 hours and then make some calls here, starting early, over the weekend, early next week, to try to fill that position.